everyone, my name is Lucy Pimblott. I am the Business Development Executive for the Marketing Optimist. We are a small, full-scale marketing department for your business. We can help with any aspects of marketing that you may need. And I have been fortunate enough to be allowed to do some interviews that we will be recording and we'll be sharing with people. They are interviews with people who have had interesting journeys, very interesting business experiences that I think a lot of people can learn some lessons from. Today, I am very lucky to have with me Mr. Phil Fraser, who has an incredible journey to tell people about. And these days he runs a business sounding board business, and he has a 5-step business strategy that he would love to share with you. So I'd like to introduce you to Phil Fraser. Hi, Phil.
Hi, Lucy. Pleased to meet you.
Thank you very much. So tell us a little bit about the Phil Fraser FFS 5-step business strategy. I have to say that very carefully.
Okay, so the FFS, the Fraser 5-step, that is what FFS stands for, nothing else, is a very simple, very simplified business strategy planning tool / process. It's not something I've made up myself. I'm not some brilliant strategist. It's a sort of accumulation of various things I've learned over the years.
And I was just going to ask, are the initials deliberate in terms of what else they can stand for? If nobody knows what they stand for, that's brilliant, then their naivety is lovely. However, I would imagine that, yes. Does it create a chuckle?
Just a little creative chuckle, yes. It does stand out in people's minds.
I think that's often a good way, because it's nothing, it's nothing that causes any kind of offence. And, there will be people who will just see the FFS and go, oh, Phil Fraser 5-step, brilliant. However, there are others who will have a little chuckle about it, and it does, like you say, it makes people remember it. So you say that it's nothing brand new. How did you come up with the strategy?
That's actually a very good question. Actually, I can't remember. As I say, it's an amalgam of different things, and if I talk you through it, I'll explain how it works. But the core of it starts with something that's in the Stephen Covey book, 7 Habits of Successful People, which is my go-to business book. And the core of that says you start with the end in mind.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So my 5 steps start with the first question is what needs to be, sorry, not what needs to be placed. That's the second question. The first question is, what does perfect look like in a year's time?
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So that's your goal.
Yeah.
And people will often say, oh, well, I don't know. And, I say, just say anything, whatever in your mind perfect looks like next year, that's your goal. So if somebody might say £1 million worth of sales, or I want to launch 5 new products, or it might be I want to sell the business, or it might be I want to acquire another business. Yeah. But that's your mission. So you start with that as your mission. So one line, that's what it looks like. The second step.
Year. Do you always work with a year rather than?
The thing with this is I use a year as a business strategy tool, right, because it's a sort of logical thing you can think of. You can use this process for a single project. You can use it for a 5-year plan. You can use it for a 6-month plan. That timeline could be anything. It could be what does perfect look like for the end of this year?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. It might, and again, then the point might be, okay, perfect for the end of this year is still being in business.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. That's your target.
Yeah. So it works whatever the time frame is.
It works whatever the time frame is. All it is a very, very simple question, just getting to the point of saying, what is it we're aiming to do or get to?
Yeah. Okay. Lovely.
Then the second stage, so that's your mission, that's your goal. Your second stage is your strategy, which is basically what do we need to put in place on a very, very top line level to make this happen.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So let's take the example again of in a year's time we want £1 million worth of sales. Okay. So what do we need? We'll probably need some more products. We might need to recruit a sales manager. We might need to put together a marketing campaign.
Yeah.
And that's your strategy. So we're going to deliver our mission with these 3 things.
Okay.
Step 3 is then the tactics to deliver that strategy.
Right. Okay. So what you need
Okay.
to.
So it's sort of simplifying a little bit further. So if you said, again, taking those examples, we need some more products, we need a marketing campaign, and we need a new sales manager.
Yeah.
So to get a sales manager, you need to start a recruitment campaign, putting that together, that type of thing. If it's a new product range, okay, we need to put a new product development team in place and start that process. If it's a marketing campaign, as you well know, it will be, even at a top level, we need to find an agency.
Yes. Yeah.
That's how top level we're starting at. You then drill down to stage 4, which is your actions.
Okay. So actually, what will you achieve?
So we're drilling down here. So we're getting very specific now. So taking the marketing example, so we need to find a marketing agency. So I need to do some research to find an agency.
Yep.
I need to maybe start putting a brief together.
Yeah.
I maybe need to work out what the budget is.
Yep.
I need to work out who's responsible for it.
Okay. Yeah.
So you're drilling down, and then the last level is the actual control / measure point of it, which is, okay, who's actually going to do it?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, makes sense.
Again, just taking that example, we'll follow it all the way through. So Dave, you're going to write a brief.
Yeah.
And I want it in by Friday. Mary, you're researching the market, and I want you to find 3 agencies to pitch to us, and I want those in by next week. Mark, you're our FD guy. How much can we afford for this?
Yeah.
I
suppose, and each part of it has their own person. So you've got the marketing side of it, then you've got the fact of talking about maybe recruiting a sales manager, and they all go further down into levels of granularity.
Correct. So you've now got, by doing it that way, and you follow this through, you've now got a list of tasks to people with budgets, with times. Okay. And this is the beautiful thing. You then flip the whole thing upside down.
Okay.
So you at the top of your sheet, you've now got, metaphorically, the list of everything that people are going to do.
Yep.
Which will deliver the tactics and the strategy we've talked about.
Yeah.
And if everything works correctly, you'll end up with your goal.
Sounds very straightforward when you put it like that. It's great.
Absolutely. And the beauty of it is very, very simple. Yeah. Now, some people then come back to me and say, well, all right, I've set my target as £1 million worth of sales by the end of the year, and I've been through this process, and for whatever reason, we can't do it.
Yeah.
You go, okay, let's go back to the top again. We'll say target's now 750. Okay, so what do you need to do? And you go back down. Obviously, there's an additional point at the end of this process, which is the review point.
Right. Yeah.
Where you go, okay, did we hit that target?
Yeah.
Yes or no? Yeah. If we did, fantastic, let's do it again. If we didn't, let's review it. What went well? What didn't work? What wasn't effective?
Learning and development points. Yeah.
And also, once you've got a target like that, you can, on the waypoints, you can see if you're getting close to where you want to be.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So if your target, again, simple numbers, is £1 million worth of sales, you know, by the end of Q1, you should have hit 250. By the end of Q2, you should have hit 500. By the end of Q3, you should have hit 750.
Yeah.
Again, being very, very
simple. Review it along the way, can't you? So you can see.
And this is the beauty of it. You can do this at any point. You could go 6 months into this and go, whoa, this isn't working.
Yeah.
Let's start again.
Yeah.
What does perfect look like in 12 months' time?
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I think, when you put it in those sorts of terms, it does seem very kind of straightforward, and it makes you think, you know, why haven't people been doing this for years? And do you find that businesses that you work with as a business sounding board are very welcome to this kind of, because it is quite straightforward when you put it in those terms. So are they expecting something a little bit more convoluted from you, or do you think that they're actually welcoming the simplicity?
I think one of the key services I offer is, and a lot of what I offer falls into a number of cliches, and one of them is the whole not being able to see the wood for the trees.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Everybody's too busy getting this week's or this month's sales in place to actually take a step back and go, okay, what does the big picture look like?
Yeah.
Now, in many situations, and this FFS is sort of part of what I do as a sounding board, I do exactly that. I'm just listening and bouncing things back to people.
Right. So it's kind of like therapy for a business.
It's a little bit like that. It's a little bit like that. And often people will come to me with a specific problem. I've got this issue, help, I don't know what to do. Or it might be, I've got this issue, either I think I might go this route, or I've got 3 routes, I don't know which way to go.
Right, okay.
What I will do is, what I won't do is I won't go back to them and say, you need to do that.
Right.
Sounding board, I'll bounce it back to them and go, okay, talk me through version 1, talk me through version 2, talk me through version 3. And what will often happen is either if they've got one answer, if they've got one idea in their head, what they're looking for is validation.
Yes.
Almost a, is it okay for me to do this?
Yeah.
Or conversely is, does this sound really, really stupid?
Yes, I can see that from people, and especially when, you know, people know about your experience in business, then it's that somebody to validate, like you say, either the positive or the negative decision, isn't it? That they've kind of in their gut, they've made a decision, but they want somebody else to say, actually, like, is the right decision. They want someone else to be the grown-up, I suppose.
Yeah, and it's part of it's validation, and part of it I often find is by people saying it out loud.
Yes. Yep.
It sort of forms it, and as people are saying it, they're working out themselves. And they're going, oh, actually, that's probably not. But if I did this and did this and did this, and they'll end up, you know, an hour down the line, and they'll go, thanks, that Phil, that's really, really helpful. And I haven't done anything. They've worked it out themselves. But you've got kids. Do they watch Harry Potter?
No, but I've watched Harry Potter.
Right. So you know Dumbledore's pensive.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like that. You're sort of pulling the ideas out of their head.
Yeah. And
they're saying them, and they're going, Phil, that's a great idea. No, I didn't say it, you said it.
Have you ever had to guide somebody in a different direction? Have you ever found where they've kind of pulled it in the wrong direction, or they've pulled the wrong idea out, and it's been a bit kind of like, no, come back.
I think that there's a couple of ways of dealing with that, and I've got a very good example from yesterday. The best way to do it is to get them to work it out that it's actually not a very good idea.
Yeah.
By asking them questions. So it's, you know, they'll say, oh, I've got this idea, I want to do blah, blah, blah. I'm ready to go. And I go, well, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? Have you thought about the other? And they get to the answer. Or, and I had a guy yesterday, and it's his sort of classic entrepreneur of loads and loads of ideas bouncing around all over the place. This guy was telling about this brilliant idea he had. 45 minutes into a conversation where he'd started the conversation telling me how busy he was and how he couldn't do anything else.
Right. Okay.
He had this brilliant idea about doing something else on top. And I said, well, I just said to him, what did we discuss at the start? And he said, oh, I'm really, really busy. I went, oh, you're right.
You're kind of reining him in a little bit and kind of saying, right, actually, what you've just told me there is in complete dichotomy to what you're doing there. So let's just focus a little bit, I suppose.
Yeah.
Have you ever come across a business that you couldn't help?
That's a very good question. The ones that I can't help aren't because I can't help them. It's because potentially they're not taking on board what I'm feeding them.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So they're not open to suggestion.
Couple of examples. Obviously, no names.
No.
I sat down with a company last year. Did the sort of bouncing things around, and it was partly on me, but partly on him. I thought, well, this guy knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
So I didn't really throw a lot of stuff at him. But even so, he didn't seem to be taking on board anything I was suggesting to him.
Right. Okay.
But I also had a client a couple of years ago where I did a project whereby I sat down, talked to his team, rolled it all up, fed it back as a, you know, here's some ideas from the team. This is the good bits, this is the bad bits. This is what they think of you, which is a great thing. And here, you know, we did a classic stop, start more. So what should he stop doing? What should he start doing? What should he do more of?
Yeah.
Fed it all back. We had a team meeting, and he sort of half delivered it and then sort of put it in the cupboard and not do anything with it.
Yeah.
Now that's his prerogative. That's up to him to do. So whilst I think I was able to help him, and what I put together I thought was a very, very good plan.
Yeah.
he hasn't taken it on board and he hasn't run with it.
You can't force anyone to action it, can you? I think that's the thing. So
Yeah.
you can come up with the best ideas, the best solutions and strategies in the world, but if somebody doesn't actually action on them, in the same way as you can come up with the best strategy in order for, you know, taking a business forward, but if somebody doesn't actually do anything with it, then that's on them, not you. So are there any traits of business owners that you find particularly frustrating and you wish that, especially when you work with SMEs, any kind of, and entrepreneurs as well, but any things that, as someone who's run a really successful business and sold it, and you've been there, done that, are there any traits that sort of the smaller business owners have that you really want them to, you can almost want to shake them and say, no, you need to be doing it this way, or you know, because I know, that kind of a thing?
I think it just goes back to the point you were saying. It's not being willing to take on advice.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the frustration. I mean, the beauty with entrepreneurs is they've got that get up and go. They've got that va-va-voom, and they want to do this, and they've got this idea, and they've got another idea, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do this. And I love that, and I love the enthusiasm that sort of person can bring. And inevitably, that's the nature of an entrepreneur. It's the ones that aren't willing or aren't open to listen. However, the service I offer as a sounding board is sort of self-selecting. So the sort of person who doesn't want advice probably won't come to speak to me because they know. They know what they're doing.
Or they're not going to listen anyway. I suppose it's like the people who have got a business mentor or a business coach and those who don't, because the people who know they need one are the people who are open for the ideas and open to be potentially criticised about what they're doing. People who are gonna, you know, who are open for somebody to challenge their decision making and be sort of open to somebody else's suggestions to how they're meant to be doing it. So I think you can tell a difference, can't you, with the people who have got an advisor, whether it's you or a mentor or a coach or however that kind of manifests itself, that they're the ones who are wanting to learn, I suppose. Absolutely.
And you alluded to it earlier. One of the things that I can offer is I've been there, again, I mentioned with probably a lot of cliches, sort of been there, done that. I am simply a business owner who's further down the track than they are, and I've probably experienced, whether good or bad, what they've experienced. And interestingly, when I was sort of molding what I wanted to do and what my product offering was, I sort of put my mind back to when I was running a business, and I realized, and I hadn't really triggered it, that we'd had 4 different advisors at different stages of the business journey come in, and how much each of those had helped them, particularly the last one, who, and again it ties back into what I was just talking about, who did that same project where he came in, spoke to the team, asked them what I should stop doing, and then sort of fed it all back. And one of the things I was told as the business owner was the team wanting me to just leave us alone, let us get on with it, stop putting my oar in, because I've got that entrepreneurial thing. Oh, I've got this great new idea. So I'd turn up on a Monday morning and say, we've got this great new idea. We're going to do this.
And they're all going, actually, we're working on this. Why not?
Correct. And in the end, what happened? So I've had it done to me. So I know A, how useful and helpful it is, and B, that there is bits in it that say just back off. And I ended up setting up a sister company so that I could put all my shiny new toys in there and not disturb the existing company. But I only did that because that's what the advisor who came in to see us told me off the back of what the team told him.
That's a great idea for people who do find themselves sort of, if you like, for want of a better phrase, the serial entrepreneur, the ideas person, the person who on a weekend, you know, possibly when you're out for a run or having a random shower or something like that, comes up with this just genius idea. And like you say, you go in and you want everyone to be as excited about it, but they're all going, yeah, but I've got this to do and I've got that to do and I've got to do, and you told me last week that this was a priority. So yeah, it's a good idea to have a separate outlet for the ideas pool, if you like. That's great. I like that. So yeah. Would you say out of the 5 steps that there are any of them that are more important than the others, or are they all equally important?
I think the most important one is step 1.
Right.
Where are we going?
Yeah.
Because and you saw my post this week on LinkedIn. So if anybody's watching, go on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I wrote a post this week about the Cheshire Cat in Alice in Wonderland.
Yes. Very
And
important quote.
if you remember the scene, Alice comes across the Cheshire Cat and asks which way to go. The Cheshire Cat says, "Where do you want to go?" And she says, "I don't know." And he says, "Well, it doesn't matter where you go."
And that's so very true. Yeah.
Business learning in Disney cartoons. So have a look at my post on LinkedIn. But that's the point. If you don't know where you're going,
yeah,
how do you know whether you're doing well or doing badly?
Yeah. And if you get lost along the way, if you don't know where you're going, you don't know that you're lost.
Absolutely. Absolutely correct. And you know, for my sins, although my business, when we were running, we never really had a business plan. We always had a general strategy in place. And one thing we did have, and again referencing another classic business book, which is Good to Great by Jim Collins,
okay,
which is something called a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal.
Okay,
so
it's
it's the classic sort of shooting for the stars type thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And again, this came from another consultant we had who came in, and we had this BHAG, and he did it. This is how long ago it was. He did it on a flip chart.
Wow.
But we laminated the flip chart with our BHAG on it, and it was on the wall in the meeting room.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
Forever, because that was the North Star that we were aiming at.
The visualization of the dream.
Yeah. So we were able, in meetings when we were focused, we were able to go, look at that on the wall. Does what we are planning to do contribute to us getting there? Now, there's going to be lots and lots of different routes to get there, and you might, you know, do this sort of thing, but as long as it's sort of generally headed in the right direction.
No, I think that's a very vital thing. It's something that I've picked up along the way with the various businesses that I've worked at, and owning my own business, of it's focusing on, is what I do today actually going to help me to achieve what I'm trying to achieve in the future? Because if it's not, why are you wasting your time doing it? Unless it's a joy to do and it's part of your all-round development. But if you are actually at a point in the day where you're meant to be working and focused on work, then it might look nice and it might be that everyone else is doing it. I think that's sometimes the other thing that especially entrepreneurs get caught up in, is you get very easily distracted by what everyone else is doing, because it looks like they're doing so well that you kind of think, I must be doing that, I must do that as well, when actually they're not doing as well as they look like they're doing, and you just need to focus on what you're doing. It's almost like mind your own business, and your business will benefit from it, because focusing on what you do well and focusing on what you're attempting to achieve is actually going to be far better than looking at what someone else is doing over your shoulder.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that feeds in. That also feeds into the whole idea of being in a niche and being a big fish in a small pond, rather than being a small fish in a big pond. Because everybody's doing. I don't know what everybody's doing at the moment. Anyway, whatever he's doing,
everyone's doing something.
Whatever's on trend for your business sector, you go, oh, we must do that because everybody else is doing it. You go, no, this is the path we're on, unless obviously it contributes to what you're doing.
Yes. Oh no, I completely agree. And I mean, I often say that to people when they ask, you know, why did I close my business? And I lost my focus, I lost my why. And I'd kind of thought that it was better to be going in a similar direction to other people. And actually, that wasn't the reason I started the business. I started it to do something a little bit sparklier, a little bit more colourful, a little bit fancier. And if I'd stayed with that and kept the fun element of it, rather than trying to kind of fit into a category that was never me, then I probably, well, you never know, do you? But it's one of those things that it's one of my biggest lessons of stop worrying about what everyone else is doing and just concentrate on what you're doing and focus on the things that you're good at, and also to bring in help and bring in experts when you need to get them in, and not trying to do everything all yourself, because with the best will in the world, we just can't do everything ourselves, and entrepreneurs want to. And I think it's one of those things that I've had conversations with people before, where when it is a business that you've developed from scratch, you almost have this kind of ownership, like it's your child, and you want to have control over every aspect, when you're far better stepping back. And like your employees were saying to you, actually, Phil, let us get on with it. Can you just leave us to do it? Because we're good at this. So let us do what we're good at. You're good at that. You concentrate on that. And I think that's where we come in as the Marketing Optimist, as a kind of a consultant, if you like, as an agency, because we allow the businesses to be able to focus on the thing that they are so good at, which is their business. We can do the marketing because that's what we're good at. And it would be very rare for one person to be able to be an expert in all the different areas that a marketing agency can be an expert in, because we have lots of different people in our team and all the different freelancers that are in our pool of talent. So it's very much like getting people to allow some help in and kind of effectively put your hand up and say, yeah, I need help. Can you come and help me, please? And I think that must be brilliant for you with the business sounding board, to be able to actually help people, to be that person.
Yeah, and again, it's part of the learning that I've had. I've done exactly that. We went from husband and wife startup and sort of let go of bits as we needed, or we needed the expertise. And there's a lot of stuff nowadays, particularly in the marketing space, that it's easy to do poorly.
Yes, yeah.
WordPress is a perfect example.
Yeah.
Everybody can build a website in WordPress, but not everybody can build a good website.
Very, very true. And the same goes for social media management as well. Anybody can get themselves a Facebook business suite page and they can start putting stuff on Facebook. But what they often find is they waste a lot of time because they're sending out messages that are the wrong message to the wrong people at the wrong time. And then unfortunately, it leaves them with a negative taste in their mouth about advertising on social media, because they go, oh, it doesn't work. And you're thinking, well, it does work, because I know of businesses that spend tens of thousands of pounds on Facebook adverts because they know it's going to bring in 70 or 80,000 pounds. So it does work. It just has to be done by professionals and done in such a way that it actually adds value to your bottom line, rather than attempting it for 5 minutes and then going, it doesn't work, can't do it.
Yeah, and SEO is a perfect example as well.
Yeah. Well,
everybody can do SEO until it gets difficult.
Yeah. Now, I must admit, I've until I kind of was made aware of some of the work that Chris, our SEO expert, does in terms of SEO. I knew a little bit about the theory and I kind of knew a little bit about how it worked, but the level of detail that is needed in order to optimize the keywords, choose the keywords, make sure that every single page is optimized for different keywords, and then you've got the images, you've got the alt tags, the amount of work that actually goes into it is phenomenal. And then you've got these people saying, oh yeah, you get emails saying, I can get you on the first page of Google in 24 hours. No, you can't. That's like somebody telling me that they can win the lottery for me and they know what the lottery numbers are going to be on Saturday. But people believe it, and they think that, like you say with search engine optimization, they think that it is just so simple. It's just a case of putting a few keywords in.
Yeah, absolutely. And SEO was the bane of our life, because that's where the vast majority of our business came from.
Yes.
And we were in one of the top 3 most competitive sectors.
Wow.
which was gambling.
Yeah.
So not only did you have to work really, really hard and know it to the nth degree, there was lots of black hat stuff going on as well, which is highly frustrating.
Yes.
But coming back to your point, that somebody says, oh, well, I can build a website because I can use WordPress. I can do some basic SEO, a few meta tags, a few H1s and H2s. I've done it. And you go, no. So it's easy to do it badly. It's not easy to do it well.
That's a very, very good point. And I'm not going to take up too much more of your time, Phil, so I've got one more question for you. And it is your first point of your strategy. Where do you see yourself and what are you going to be achieving in 12 months' time?
That's a really good question, because this whole being a business advisor is totally cobbler's shoes. Yes. So if I turn the question back to you, what's the Marketing Optimist's marketing plan this year?
No, I don't know it, but I'm going to assume that Richard does.
Well,
I do know what my plan is. I do know I have a turnover plan and I have a strategy for how to achieve it.
Brilliant.
So I do have a turnover plan, but yes, it is subject to change, obviously, if the world stays in this awful situation that it's in now. But I've got a plan. I'm fairly confident that Richard's got a strategic marketing plan, but I do think you're right, because I know that our website, the Marketing Optimist website, was only recently updated because the guys have been spending so much time doing everybody else's that, like you say, cobbler's shoes. Yeah.
So my plan, because I've only recently started sort of offering my services as a business sounding board. So I've got a plan in 12 months' time to have probably a maximum of 10 clients.
Yeah.
Because over that, I don't think I can offer the quality of service and the depth of service that I want to do.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I might get to 10 and go, right, okay, I'm cool with 10, I can do 12, I can fit 12 in. Or I might get to 10 and go, actually, I need to rein it back to 8 because I really can't do as much depth as I want. And I've got an idea as to how I'm going to market myself to get there. But that's part of a 30-month plan.
Okay,
which is again referencing somebody else, a guy called, if you want to learn about LinkedIn, there's a guy called John Esperian, who is absolutely brilliant. He's got a book called Content DNA, and within that, one of the things he talks about, particularly on LinkedIn, is personal brand building.
Yes.
And he says it takes 30 months.
Okay, right.
So I'm on a 30-month plan of know, like, trust.
Yes. Yeah.
To market myself. So everything I'm doing now from a marketing point of view, and even this, is part of what I want to look like in 30 months time. Yeah. So I'll have a bank of content in 30 months time when somebody comes along and they've heard about me, they know what I do, hopefully they like what I do, and hopefully either through contact or through seeing what I'm doing and reading stuff on LinkedIn like Cheshire Cats, they think, right, I can trust this guy, and I want him to come along and help me. So that's my plan.
You're building that visibility, that recognition, which I think when you look at quite a lot of people who have appeared to be an overnight success on the internet and that kind of thing, then they have actually turned up every day. They've done things for probably the last 2 to 3 years before it gets picked up on of, oh, actually that person is the person to talk to about. I mean, I look at somebody like James Smith, personal trainer, for example. He's within that remit. I'm not his target audience at all. His target audience is probably 20 to 30-year-old blokes, which is fine. But I like a lot of what he says in terms of his business strategy and the way he's literally turned up every single day to do something so that people know who he is. And he's a bit outspoken, but he's got opinions and he's not afraid of them. And his opinions are based on fact and his experience as a personal trainer. So it's not just I picked an opinion from Google and I'm going to rehash it. So I think there are people like that. And like you say, it takes that time for people to know, like, and trust. And then the idea, I guess, behind that is then that people start, instead of you having to go out to get leads, people are literally coming to you to say, actually, I need to speak to Phil. Phil is the guy that I need to speak to because he is the guy that knows about how to help me with my business.
Correct. You put it better than I could.
That's because I'm a marketeer. Because that's what I do. But that's brilliant. No, I really appreciate it. And yes, anyone who's listening to this, anyone who sees this, you can find Phil on LinkedIn. When we put this on YouTube, I'll put your links in there, Phil. I'll get Richard to do it because he's got all the technological stuff. I just do the nice bit of talking to people, which is brilliant. That's the best bit about a business development role. You just get to talk to people all day, every day.
Not bad, is it? Not bad.
So thank you for your time, Phil. I really appreciate it, and good luck with everything. I will see you, no doubt, in all sorts of things, and because I follow you on LinkedIn, I get to see all your comments about Cheshire Cats and all sorts of random things. I'll explain to you one day how I got that quote when I was at sixth form. But yeah. Thank you very much. I'm going to stop recording now.
Okay, cheers.
Bye.